At the age of 23, I have already helped over 500 men permanently lose fats and transform their bodies inside of my coaching program. But who am I and how did I get here? For those of you that don't already know me, my name is Joey Joheim. I'm the co-owner of DefaultKings.com, where we teach Christian entrepreneurs the biblical process to losing fat and actually keeping it off for good. Now, my story personally starts long before Default Kings. It actually starts literally as a child, pretty much immediately upon birth. So both of my parents were physical therapists, so I've been around the world of exercise science, kinesiology, health, and fitness literally since I've come out of the womb. Now, for me, I started playing soccer at the age of 5. And this sport was my first love and passion. It was the only thing that I knew how to do to the best of my ability, and the only thing that I ever really wanted to do. So I had the fortune of playing with some of the best teams in the state and honestly in the country. From a young age, we were winning state championships, national championships. I was able to be coached by ex-professionals essentially at all times, which was amazing, and I was super fortunate to be able to have this. But the most important thing that soccer gave me was just the idea of what it actually takes to be great at a craft and how dedicated and disciplined you need to be to achieve these amazing feats. So I remember specifically one time at 11 years old, my coach at the time, his name was Emil Haitanic. He was a former Romanian national team player. He looked me in the eyes at 11 years old and told me that if I wanted to be good at this sport and compete at the levels that I wanted to compete at, I had to touch the ball every single day. This is when I somewhat discovered the pretty obsessive personality that I have when it comes to things that I'm passionate about or things that I want to be really good at, because literally from the time I was 11 years old all the way through my college career, I touched the ball every single day. And I mean, vacations, I would bring a ball. Holidays, I would have a ball at my feet. And it sounds crazy and unrealistic unless you know me. And the people that were around me at that point in my life, you know, friends, family, anybody watching this that happens to know me would back that up and tell you that that was the truth. It was who I was. It was a massive part of my identity, and it was really all that I wanted to do with my life at the time. And a big part of this that stuck with me from an identity perspective was just working hard. When it came to soccer and athletics as a whole, I was okay knowing that maybe I'm not the most talented or gifted guy out there, but I was never going to let working hard be the determining factor behind why I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. I never wanted to look back at my career athletically and say, could I have gone harder? And this is still a mindset that I have today with business, with martial arts, with lifting weights, anything that I'm passionate about today. It's like I never want to leave any ounce of effort left in the tank. So fast forward to high school, everything starts to get a little bit more real. Obviously, everybody starts asking the question, are you going to play in college? What do you want to do with your life? All of these bigger life decisions that start to come to the forefront of my mind as a young teenager. So for me, I was just 14 years old when these questions started to come about, and it was never a question in my mind whether or not I was going to try and play in college. I was going to do everything I could to play collegiately, because in my mind, conceptually, that was the highest level that you could really get to, at least at 14 years old, right? Obviously, you go play professionally, but in my mind, that wasn't necessarily something that I desired to do. But collegiately, I always knew that that was a goal for me, and I was going to get there no matter what it took. So here I am, 14 years old, the summer before my freshman year of high school, and of course, being the, I think I was like 5'3" or 4 at the time. I was 125 pounds. I was like, I need to get bigger. I'm playing against 18-year-old guys. These are essentially grown men in my mind at the time. And so this naturally led me to the weight room. Now, since I grew up with 2 physical therapists as parents, I'd spent a ton of time in clinics and just around the field of kinesiology and just exercise science as a whole. But once I got into the weight room, that's where it really started to actually tie everything together. All of these conceptual things that I was learning from my parents to actual real world application when I went and learned how to lift weights and learned how to transform my body personally and become stronger, faster, better looking, etc. Now, just like with soccer, where I wasn't gonna ever question whether or not I had any effort left in the tank, I applied that same mindset to the weight room. We had a strength and conditioning coach on staff. His name was Jay, which, Jay, if you happen to somehow be watching this, I love you, man. I appreciate everything that you did for me. He took me under his wing. He would show up to the weight room early to work out with me. He would stay after to allow me to finish the longer workouts that I had, because in my mind at the time, I was like, hey, if I just work out longer and do more exercises. I'm going to be stronger and bigger and faster than everybody. So he would allow me the opportunity to do that. I'd come in early, I'd stay late, and he was there guiding me along the way. So at this point, I started to become obsessed with the literature around training, nutrition, sleep, and things like that. And it's when I started to really ask myself, could this be a potential career for me someday? Because like I said, I knew I wanted to play soccer in college, but I didn't have really any aspirations of making a career out of the sport that I was in. So this weight room experience, this athletic experience, made me start to question, could this be a career in a different way? Could I work with athletes someday? Could I do what my parents do someday and do physical therapy? That's when this really started to become a burning hot desire to get into the field of kinesiology and just health and fitness as a whole someday. So I made a big point out of getting internships and shadowing physical therapists, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, coaches of all kinds of different sports throughout high school. So that way I could really put my finger on what exactly it was that I wanted to do. And by the time I got to senior year, I concluded that the career I wanted to go after was physical therapy, but sports specific physical therapy. So helping athletes come back from surgeries, helping athletes prevent injuries, helping athletes become better athletes. That was the career that I put my finger on by the time I was around 17, 18 years old. I concluded that that is what I wanted to do. Now, luckily by my senior year, I had strung together a pretty successful athletic career and academic career, which allowed me the opportunity to pick from a handful of respected universities. Now, I ended up actually choosing to play soccer and study exercise science at John Carroll University in Cleveland, Ohio, which is right by where I grew up. It was only about an hour from where I went to high school and where I spent my entire childhood. So any of you that are watching this that also happen to be college athletes, especially if you were a college athlete that attended a school that was, top 25 in your sport, you're going to heavily relate to the reality check that I got when I got to college. In high school, it's pretty easy to be an elite athlete among your peers, but when you get to college sports, you quickly find out that you are surrounded by a bunch of other guys who were also elite among their peers. So I very quickly went from the kid that started 71 of 72 varsity games across 4 years in high school to the kid that got to college in his freshman year only logged minutes in 2 varsity games. Now, of course, this was heartbreaking for me. Soccer had become a massive part of my identity, and I placed a lot of my social status in being good at that sport. Now, the good news was that I was already in a headspace where soccer was getting increasingly less important to me, because I knew that the main priority for me going to that university was to leave with a very good career, leave with a very good job. Right? The purpose to be there was not to play soccer. Playing soccer there was just a bonus. This actually led to me pursuing more internships and getting actual jobs in the fields that I was interested in at a low level as early as literally my first semester there, which just actually wasn't even required for graduation until you were a senior, but I was really interested in figuring out what I wanted my career to be. So before the end of my freshman year, I found myself actually being in 3 different jobs while being a full-time student and while being a college athlete. I was a personal trainer under Marcus Marinelli, who is Stipe Miocic's head coach for the UFC. I was an intern directly under Tim Robertson Jr., who was LeBron James' strength and conditioning coach for the 2003 NBA draft. And I was a physical therapy aide under a name that I'm 99% sure I can't say because of HIPAA, who is very respected in the field of physical therapy. Obviously, this was chaos. I was incredibly busy, but I was learning from 3 of the best minds in the fields that I was very interested in going into. So at this point, I was combining learning from these 3 people that were amazing mentors to me. I was combining my studies of exercise science. I was combining being raised by 2 physical therapists, and I was combining 5 years of lifting weights on my own and the other 15 years that I spent as an athlete playing soccer and just developing everything required to be a high level performer physically. So I started to realize that I was pretty freaking good at this whole health and fitness coaching thing. My personal training clients were starting to see results. I was starting to collect case studies before I even knew what case studies were. And the athletes I was coaching with Tim were getting professional contracts and collegiate offers. And the patients that I was helping at the clinic were becoming pain-free and happy again. Then came COVID, which, just like for everybody else, it turned my world upside down. COVID hit at the end of my freshman year, and before we could ever get my sophomore season kicked off, the school announced that there was going to be no fall sports. I was flatlined For the first time in my life and for my foreseeable future, I didn't have a team, I didn't have competition, I didn't have sports, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So this is when I dove deep into the world of self-improvement, which I know a lot of people did during the pandemic, but I was reading all of the books, Tim Ferriss, Jocko, David Goggins, anything under the sun that could help you, fix yourself, I was diving into because I didn't know what else to do. The two biggest hobbies that I picked up during this little 6-month stretch were martial arts, which I still do to this day, and I also started looking more into entrepreneurship with a friend of mine that I played soccer with. So on a whim in December of 2020, when I was supposed to just be concluding my sophomore soccer season, that buddy, who actually played soccer with me as well, so we were both supposed to be finishing it, called me and said, "Hey dude, I'm studying business, you're studying exercise science, why don't we just start a fitness coaching program together? I'll do the business, you do the actual coaching because you're good at that and I'm good at the other thing." And I said yes. And we launched it in January of 2021. But essentially immediately after launching this company, the school announced that the COVID sports ban had been lifted. And so in February of 2021, I was faced with a pretty tough decision. At the time, it was easily the hardest decision I've ever had to make. And that was walking away from soccer entirely to pursue entrepreneurship full time because I'd fallen in love with something again for the first time that wasn't soccer. Now, when I called my coach to tell him about my decision, he was excited, he supported me, and he actually immediately offered me the opportunity to take on the strength and conditioning role for the team that I had just quit playing for, and in Joey fashion, I said yes and added another thing to my plate. Now, probably needless to say, my buddy and I's company that we launched made $0 for 8 months, and in August of 2021, we decided to shut it down entirely and part ways. However, along the way, we had picked up a mentor named Alex Hayden. Now, if you don't know who Alex is, you can look him up on YouTube or Google. He's a guy that has pretty much single-handedly coined the marketplace of no-code SaaS, but that's a story for another time. The whole point, Alex is amazing, and he was very good at the world of entrepreneurship. So he reached out to me at the time that we shut this company down, and he just told me, don't quit. He essentially saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself yet. I knew I was a great coach and that I could get practically anybody under the sun fitness and health results. And I knew that I was never gonna quit, like we've talked about in this video already. That was a big part of my personality, was just leaving no stone unturned. But when it came to actually running a business and learning how to produce income from a venture, I was completely lost. I had no idea how to make that happen. So Alex recommended that I followed these two guys on Twitter that were similar to my age and had started to get some traction with a fitness coaching business of their own, similar to what I had been trying to do. And their names were Jack Bly and Gabe Pluguez. Now, the reason I'm smiling is because if you follow me on any other social media for any length of time, you know what this story develops into, but I'll tell it nonetheless. So I reached out to Jack directly, and pretty quickly thereafter connecting with him, I hired him to mentor me in business. So for timeline purposes, I hired Jack in September of 2021 to help me scale my own fitness coaching business while he scaled his. And by November of 2021, I had already made way more money than I had in the 8 months prior, which obviously wasn't hard to do because we made $0. But the point is, I started to finally make substantial income from my online coaching business. So we're in November of 2021 at this point, and here comes the part that my parents originally didn't very much approve of. But where we are right now, it leaves me with 3 jobs. I'm still a personal trainer. I'm still interning for a strength and conditioning coach. I'm still working as a physical therapy aide. I'm still actually a strength and conditioning coach with the team that I used to play for. And now I have an online coaching business that I'm running. I'm really doing 5 things while also being a student. Now, luckily, I'm not playing sports anymore, so I have a little bit more time, but that's really 5 gigs that I was juggling. However, I was already producing a ton of successful client results. I was making just as much money as I would have made post graduation with an exercise science degree, and I felt like I was learning more than I ever would have just staying in the degree that I was in. So in December of 2021, I decided to just not register for the spring of 2022 classes, and I told my parents it was a gap semester, which gave me the green light. I promised them that if the business slowed down and I wasn't able to keep the income the same between then and fall classes, that I would re-register and I would go back to school and I would finish the degree. But in the back of my mind, I knew that that wasn't going to happen, and I just needed time to be able to show them receipts that I am figuring it out and I am going to be okay without that degree. Now, 2 more months go by. It's February of 2022. I'm still in those same 5 gigs. But Jack and Gabe offered me the opportunity to take on a bigger role in their company, which at the time was called Vigor Gains, and literally take over management of their entire client pool and take a profit share from the business. And in Joey fashion, if you haven't seen the trend already, I said yes when a wonderful opportunity presented itself. But at this point, it was officially too much on my plate. I had to trim the fat. So I quit being the strength and conditioning coach for the team that I used to play for. I stopped working under Tim Robertson, the performance enhancement specialist, and I left my position as a physical therapy aid. And so that left me with just my clients and Jack and Gabe's clients that I was managing together, and also my in-person training clients that I had. I was all in on training and fitness coaching and my own clientele. So at this point, I was free from school, free from sports. I was doing literally only what I wanted to do. I was making my own money. I had my own clients. All I was doing all week was working on the business, lifting weights, training martial arts, and I was about as happy as I could be. I really didn't think life could get any better, and then it did. So 3 months goes by, it's May of 2022, and Jack and Gabe offer me another opportunity, essentially a promotion, to actually come and be a legitimate equity partner in the business, not just have a profit share, but be an equity partner and manage the entire back end fulfillment and operations of Vigor Gains. But the caveat was they asked me to move down to Florida so we could all be together and run this business, grow this business, scale this business together. And as you know, I said yes. So in July of 2022, I officially moved down to Orlando, Florida to be with Jack and Gabe and take over the real scaling and growth and development of what was Vigor Gains, that we rebranded to Default Kings, which is what it is known as now, and really just take this as far as we could and impact as many lives as we possibly could. So from July of 2022 to January 2023, we had tripled the size of our team, taken the company to over a 7-figure annual run rate, and had worked with over 350 clients to help them change their default actions, lose a minimum of 10 to 30 pounds, and actually keep it off for good. Then this past April of 2023, things got a little interesting. Gabe and I actually had a parting of ways with Jack, which, if you're unaware, the most havoc causing thing in a business is a founder split, and that's what we went through. And this happened right in the middle of our upward trajectory to becoming a multi-7-figure company. Now, thankfully, this was a mutual parting of ways, and it wasn't like an ugly breakup or anything like that. We simply had different visions, and we wanted to go down the paths that God was individually calling us down. So Gabe and I still have an awesome relationship with Jack. He's one of our closest friends. We spent a ton of time with him. We're actually in his wedding. So there's nothing ugly there. It was just a difference in where we want to take the company and what we want to do with it. Now, this of course doesn't mean that Gabe and I haven't gone through trials and tribulations in the last 8 months, the time of this recording. This year saw us cut our team, our revenue, our client base all into a quarter of what it was in January to be able to break the systems down, rebuild them, and prepare for scaling with the new goals and new vision that we have for this company. But as we went through this, it gave Gabe and I the opportunity to dial in exactly who it is that we want to serve and serve better than anybody else. So as we pondered this and also looked at the data of the clients that had just seen the best results inside of defaultkings.com, we came to a pretty obvious conclusion. The men that we served best were the men that reminded us of our own fathers. So I'll skip over Gabe's dad's story. That's his to tell, and he tells it quite often on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, so you can go follow him there. And I will tell you the story about my father, because there was one big detail that I left out of this that was going on in the background while I went through this entire journey to where I am now. So like I mentioned earlier on and a few times throughout this video, my dad was a physical therapist. He has a master's degree in exercise science. He spent tens of thousands of dollars on his education about the human body and knows more about it than 99% of the population. And he was a Christian, and he still struggled with his weight. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that a guy with so much education, so much knowledge around that subject, and somebody that believes in God and understands the value of the body that he loans us was still able to find himself 50 pounds overweight. If he knows all of these things about what he needs to do to get healthy, and he values the body that God gave him, how can he come home and binge eat and sit on the couch and skip workouts? It was a really hard battle for me mentally. Now, spoiler alert, he made his way out of this, which I'll tell you about in a second. But in our conversations afterwards, when it was like, hey, when did this all start? we put our finger on one specific event, and it was when he started to launch his own physical therapy company, his own private practice, and start his journey into entrepreneurship. The inevitable stress of business and self-employment, he started to sacrifice his health to improve his career and improve his finances, like so many of us entrepreneurs do. But like it happens for so many people, it turned into a massive negative downward spiral into poor self-identities, poor beliefs around health and fitness, and just quite frankly, self-sabotage. Now, thankfully, my father got to the point where he stopped trying to do it himself. He put his ego and his pride to the side and got help. He found himself a coach. He found himself a community of like-minded individuals, and now he's down over 50 pounds in the last 2.5 years, 3 years. He's squatting over 400 pounds, and quite frankly, he would make most men his age look absolutely silly in any sort of physical competition. But my father's story was the same story of so many guys that had already come through Default Kings at that point, and Gabe's dad's was very similar as well. So this is when we concluded that we wanted to work specifically with these guys that reminded us of our fathers. Christian entrepreneurs that have found themselves in a negative habit feedback loop where they just feel stuck and they find themselves sacrificing their health for their business, even though they know that that's not the wisest thing to do. This includes guys like Drew Hartman, who owned a brick and mortar family business and in the last year has lost 119 pounds working with us. Guys like Andre Heikel Jr., who is a 8-figure portfolio owner and lost over 17 pounds working with us in less than 3 months. Alex G., who's in the crypto space and in the past 2 years is down over 50 pounds and is now competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments with his daughter. Carlos, who's down over 20 pounds and finally got rid of the love handles for good without sacrificing time in his business or time with his wife and kids. And Jeff, who owns a medical practice and lost 29 pounds in 12 weeks while working out less than he had on his previous programs. And there are plenty more examples where that came from. So to date, our company has helped 500 plus men go through this process successfully. So that is, to the date of this recording, the story of Joey Johan. So if you feel like you can resonate with any part of my story, my father's story, or any of the stories of the other guys that I mentioned in this video, and you're interested in getting help from me and my team directly, all you have to do is go to defaultkings.com and book a free fat loss assessment where you'll speak with either myself or Gabe or one of the other fat loss experts on our team about how we can help you lose 10 to 30 pounds using our default actions framework. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this with a friend if you think it could help them out. And if you're interested in seeing how we helped an 8-figure portfolio owner lose 17.1 pounds in less than 3 months without taking away time from his business, while traveling, while eating out, and without doing tons of cardio, check out this video right here.